It is Wednesday, 2 days after our hurricane-force winds whipped through the various areas of our community. And I thought I'd give you a little look-see at some of the property here at church. There have been several that have been working the last couple of days to help get some of the property cleaned up. I know many of you folks have had significant tree damage on your properties with limbs broken, trees fallen. Even some have had limbs and trees fall into their homes. There's been a crew of people here at church the last couple of days trying to clean up the grounds, and this is really almost done. You can see some of the piles stacked all around, and we are really glad that really nothing of significance was damaged in the windstorm here at church, especially when I came in Tuesday morning hoping, trusting, asking that God would have protected our two garages. And they are all fine and doing well. You see this tree up at the top here. We lost a couple of big branches out of that, and there's one split main trunk artery that we are going to need to cut out of that, but none of those large limbs brought any damage to our properties. We did have some loss of shingles on the top of our roof, and we are hoping to get that repaired just as soon as possible. And we're really glad for what God has done, just even in the simple care and provision of the last number of days here, as we've all been dealing with the after effects of our storm on Monday. As you become aware of needs, make sure that you are letting us know. I know we're trying to help out different church families that have a number of needs, need yards cleaned up and limbs removed, and so let us know here at church, and we'll do all we can to get a volunteer crew of people to help address that need at your home. If you have a Bible, turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 2, and I want to read what is known as Hannah's prayer, the first section of this chapter, and then make some comments to be an encouragement to you this day. And Hannah prayed and said, verse 1, "My heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there's none besides you. There's no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble bind on strength. Those who are full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness. For not by might shall a man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed." In this prayer, Hannah's song so eloquently affirms the concepts of Israel's faith, but also of our faith as well. The Lord is the great judge of all. He is the seer of human destinies and a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. I've been noting again and again how at least a theme has appeared to me, and in this text you certainly see the sovereign care of God, and certainly the expression of God as the ultimate, all-wise, knowing authority over all of his creation. There's the truth that there is none like the Lord. He is holy. There's none beside him. There is no rock but our God. And so when we walk through this text, I want to just emphasize for my own life, for your life, and in a context of need and deprivation, which, of course, Hannah is directly coming from. She has, you'll remember from some of the details of 1 Samuel 1, she is childless. Penina, her co-wife, I guess you would call her, has been mocking her, and yet she pours out her heart before the Lord, so much so that Eli perceives that perhaps she is drunk. But in fact, she says, no, I've been pouring out my soul before the Lord. All of my need and my desperate desire to bear a son. And God, if you'll give me a son, then I will dedicate him to you as a Nazirite for all of his earthly life. And so wonderfully, God provides for Hannah. He brings the boy, Samuel, through the normal procreative process. And God is the source of empowerment and victory for those who fear him. And yet for all others, he is an overwhelming, overpowering authority who dispenses a fearful judgment. Certainly the prayer gives focus to the exaltation of God. And though he's devalued by others and not accepted by others, he, in fact, is the God who is the sovereign of nations and certainly the sovereign of the nation of Israel. She speaks in verse 1 about her mouth being enlarged. And so she now gives her thanks and praise to God through his deliverance. The object of Hannah's delight is not herself, that she has overcome the disgrace of barrenness, nor even in the presence of her son. It is rather the Lord. He is the source of both her son and her happy circumstance. And so in her prayer, which was uttered in a public forum where others could hear and understand, Hannah admonishes all who would foolishly brag or exalt themselves before the sovereign God. Over them stands the Lord, who is aware of our thoughts and constantly evaluating our deeds. And so our text it communicates so very clearly. The Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble bind on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. God has met the needs of his people. Hannah even indicates that the barren has borne 7, that number of completeness, and she has borne many children who once was forlorn. And then the middle section of her prayer is the commitment of Hannah to the sovereign rule of God. It really is a text that we ought to meditate through, think through. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. The Lord's actions can be extremely positive. The text says he makes alive. He raises from the dust. He lifts from the ash heap. He exalts. He causes people to inherit a throne. He seats people with princes. He sends wealth. He will guard them. He will give strength to them. He will raise them up even from the grave. It should also be noted that God also sends poverty. He humbles. He will thunder from the heavens. He will judge. He will bring death. He brings down to the grave. The Lord does not, of course, perform these actions indiscriminately. As the judge of the ends of the earth, he brings the worst against those who would oppose him, while bestowing his protection, his strength, his exaltation to his saints and to his anointed ones. It is quite fascinating to read the end of this text in the verses 9 and 10. It speaks of the Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Historically, we understand that Israel at this point had no king. It would not be long before Samuel would be involved in the process of Israel selecting its first king. Expositors have different ideas about what is referred to here in Hannah's prayer. Is it perhaps some of the judges who were perceived as a king in their region, and that's the reference point in this text. Or maybe it's a reference to a kingship generally mentioned in the Old Testament Pentateuch. Perhaps a reference to the Davidic dynasty, or even references to an anticipated future person that might be truly the king. There are many close parallels between Hannah's prayer and Mary's song in Luke chapter 1, verses 46 through 55. And they suggest in that early day that the people in Mary's day considered the passage, and especially the phrases, his king and his anointed, to be prophetic references to even the Messiah, to Jesus Christ. When I think through a passage like this, I think of all of the needs of my life, all of the many impossible situations of our life. I know, even reviewing the events of Monday's storm, my, what a powerful wind. And who can really stand against such hurricane force winds? And yet to think that God is the one who, it says, he thunders from the heavens. He throws lightning out as they were swords. The wind is but the breath from his lips. And to think about God as sovereign, that his all-encompassing power that's full of compassion and righteousness and judgment. There's no situation in my life or in your life that is beyond the reach of his power. I do meditate through, when I think through some of the impossible situations of my life, it's God who kills and God who brings to life. It is God who raises up. It's God who makes poor and makes rich. He lifts the poor from the dust. So when I am interceding on behalf of people in my family, people in your family, for you, for a host of people who at this day do not know Christ and who so desperately need Christ, it is so vital to remember that there is nothing beyond the power, the reach, the scope of God's sovereign care for us. And certainly to reach those who, even at this moment, would not acknowledge God, would not accept Jesus Christ, would have no love, would have no desire for him, and yet he certainly is able to reach what we would consider to be the unreachable. So when you think today about the impossible situations of your life, perhaps it would be good to review a very, very basic text and say, my heart exults in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. There is none holy like you, Lord. There is none besides you. There is no rock like our God. The Lord is a God of knowledge. By you, the actions of humanity are weighed. You give life, you kill, you bring down to Sheol, you raise up. You raise the poor from the dust. You lift the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. The pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. There's nothing beyond the power of this God, and he's the God who has said, come to me, call to me, and I will answer you, and I will show you great and mighty things that you do not know. Meditate through this. Pray it back to the Lord. Be encouraged by all that God is and all that he has provided for us. Be assured of our constant prayer for one another and for you, especially asking that God would give his richest blessing, and that even we who recognize that we are needy, that we would count upon him to lift us from the ash heap. He's done that in the work of Christ. He's given us the Holy Spirit. He's given us his wonderful word. So today, let's trust this God and say, along with Hannah, there is no God like our God.
Immortal, invisible, God only wise, almighty, victorious, thy great name we praise. Immortal, invisible, God splendor of light, bright and clear. Immortal, invisible, God.